It's the last team preview. It's the Atlanta Hawks, sleepers bust, undervalued, under 23s, over the hills, all the stuff that you don't know and I guess sometimes tolerate. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I have to announce that I've become a brand ambassador for Cotton On. In a completely unrelated piece of news, I'm also going to be moving to Geelong. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at LockedOnFantasyBasketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free, and we are available on all platforms, so give it a double bang and a thumb. Comment, this is the most important time of the year, and I understand that there are numerous fantasy basketball shows that you could be listening to and watching, and I do encourage people to take in other opinions. That's why I get other analysts, people up and coming in the space to come on to this show as well. But I do appreciate that when you choose to watch this show, understanding that there is a lot of choice out there, so thank you. Again, I say first listen, and it sounds like it's a trite marketing tag, and it is something that we put branding across our network, of course, but I do appreciate people that actually choose this show compared to the other ones that are out there. I appreciate you guys, and I love you guys for doing that. Next little part. At the start of every show, I'm sure you're all aware, I try to chuck a little joke in. Not everyone's going to get it. But if you do understand the joke that I put in at the start of the show, can you just leave a comment? Something like, I understood that reference. Just something. Just want to see who gets them. It's not going to be many, but that's okay. Next one. Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl. All the leagues are full and drafting apart from Draft and Stash. I've got 10 divisions of Draft and Stash full, and we're aiming for 15. 15? Yeah, we're aiming for 15 divisions in that. So there are some spots left. I will put the link to join Draft and Stash in the notes. Show notes, episode description, comments. It's on my Twitter as well. I want to get those drafts rolling because they are larger drafts and they need to get happening. The other thing in terms of leagues that you can get into, of course, is the FBI World Cup. The link to that is also in the description. The link to that is also in the show notes. 12-team leagues, 9 categories, $20 entry for the FBI World Cup. There are redrafts in that one during the season. It's 14-man rosters, 9 category head-to-head leagues, prizes through all phases. So join that one up as well. And we'll see you guys in there. Let's talk Atlanta Hawks. This is the final team that we're doing here. And then I don't know which way we're going to go. I've got bust shows to do not drafts, must drafts, a couple other shows there, but a bunch of mock drafts as well. And I'm probably going to do what I did last season, drafting from each position. We'll see exactly what I do, but I probably will. From a points league, I won't draft from every position because there's no such thing as builds in points leagues. It's like whatever player I get. So I'll probably do zones. Like I'll pick top 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9. 10 to 12 in points league mock drafts. But for categories, I'll do 1 through 12. Then I'll do expand it to 14, 16, 18, 20, I'm guessing. So there's going to be a lot coming with shows over the next 2 weeks. We're here to talk about this Atlanta Hawks team that obviously made the move that I was expecting, but others thought they would trade the other player away, and that is Trae Young. There's always this narrative that gets thrown around, man, they're done with Trae. Trae can't win. They don't want Trae. Trae's worse than DeJounte Murray. And that, to me, was just false the whole way through. I never believed that. You heard me stand on business about that during the season. Of course, DeJounte Murray was shipped off for nothing because of numerous reasons. Let's take a look at my projected starting group for this team, and there are a lot of different ways this can go, actually. We know that Trae Young is going to start. There's no question about that, and I know that Jalen Johnson is going to start. That is what is going to happen. The other spots, who knows? At the moment, I've got Trae, along with Dyson Daniels, along with Zachary Ricochet, along with Onyeka Okongwu. But Daniels might not be there. It might be Bogdan Bogdanovic. I don't think there is any debate whatsoever that Bogdan Bogdanovic is a better player than Dyson Daniels. But that's not really the point. Bogdanovic is older. Bogdanovic plays as a sixth man. He helps because they have no backup point guard, and he can handle and he can be that shooter. And he didn't start last season, obviously. And yes, DeJounte wasn't there, but it's never usually just as easy as DeJounte's gone, so who's the next best player? Because it's about how it fits, and I think Dyson Daniels fits really well there. Doesn't mean that he plays 33 minutes and has the same usage as DeJounte, because it won't be the case. The other thing it could be DeAndre Hunter and not Zachary Ricochet. Also, they could go really small and not put Dyson or Bogdanovic and then go Hunter, Ricochet, and Johnson as the 2, 3, 4. Whether it's Hunter or Ricochet as the 2, whatever you want. But I find it really hard to believe that a number 1 overall pick wouldn't be a starter, especially considering DeAndre Hunter got benched last season and he's been a disappointment through most of his career. But that could easily be Hunter over Ricochet. I think that would flip pretty quickly, but that's how it could go. And then, of course, the big question is the center. I am putting Onyeka Okongwu there, but I also don't know. Even if it is Capela starting, I feel it will be almost a bang down the middle minute split, if not 26-22 heading Okongwu's way. But I also don't know. It is the final year of Capela's contract. It is an extension. Well, the extension kicks in for Okongwu. At some point, something has to give. And this is the first time that I think that it is going to happen. In previous years, I have said, I do not think that this will happen. But I think it would be in their best interest to do it. And it never has. This year, I think it will happen, and it is in their best interest to do it. We'll see how that actually plays out. But that's how I'm viewing that part of it. Let's take a look at undervalued players on this Hawks team from a fantasy perspective. I think there are quite a few of them, to be honest. And I'm going to put Jalen Johnson under the lens a little bit later on, so we won't dig massively into him. Now, obviously, when the first lot of ESPN drafts opened and he was ranked at 127, it showed that they had no idea what they were doing. Cool. Now, things have been adjusted, and the thing that hasn't quite come in yet is the ADP for Jalen, where it sits at 66, which is still it's incredibly low. He's not going to be the 66th best player. He's not going to sit there. He's not going to go drafted in there. But ESPN does adjust their rankings very quickly, or adjust their ADPs very quickly. They use more of a rolling situation versus let's look at all of the data, which I applaud. Actually, that is much better than the Yahoo system. And I wrote there that his points rank is 66. Actually, his ADP for points leagues is 66. This is way better than that. I would be happy to take Jalen Johnson at the turn of the 3rd and 4th round in categories and points leagues. But we'll talk more about him later. I think Onyeka Okongwu is undervalued as well. His ADP at the moment, the big fella, is 140 on ESPN, which, if you're unaware, that is the default number they give to people who don't have regular ADPs. So he's just not being drafted. And that's because they've ranked him at 158, which, of course, is insanity. Unbelievable nonsense. You can believe that he's not a starter, and that is okay. But I don't think you can categorically sit here and tell me that Onyeka Okongwu is not going to be a starter or is not going to be a top 150 player. You can't tell me that. So therefore, he needs to be drafted. Despite playing 25 minutes last season, did he play 25? 26 minutes. He averaged 10 and 7. He had over a block. He had 61 and 79, which those elite percentages for categories are unbelievable. In the past, he's been a much better shot blocker. He started to hit some threes. He started to play at the 4. Part of the problem here with Okongwu is he's the toe injury, which hurt him last season. He's still apparently recovering from it, which is not a great sign. But like I said, when we're talking about where those values lie on ESPN, with a ADP of 140, a category rank of 158, and a points rank of 144, that is legitimately no risk. It's just unbelievably undervalued. If you want to take him in round 10, go for it. Dyson Daniels, I also think, is underrated. I don't know what Dyson's going to bring. I don't know that he's going to start, but I think he's going to get good steals. Solid rebounds, solid assists. He won't score very much. The free throw percentage can be a problem. But his ADP is 147. That is last round on Yahoo. His rank is 164. That is undraftable 12 teams. His rank is 229 on ESPN, which is undraftable in 16s, which of course is comical. And his points rank on ESPN is 229 as well. I would draft him without any question whatsoever in round 11 of any draft. As long as he's on my bench, I'm happy to do it. 1.4 steals in 22 minutes. Now, you could convert that and say 30 minutes gives us 2 steals, and that's true. But we also know that he could easily average 1.4 steals in 30 minutes. He could average 1 steal in 30 minutes. That's not how steals work. But this is year 4. I do believe that there is a big opportunity here. 4 rebounds in 22 minutes is interesting. Is he a 6 or 7 rebound player as a guard? That's pretty good because DeAndre Hunter can't rebound. Zach Ricochet, I don't think is going to be an awesome rebounder. I think there's some real value there in what he brings as an above-average guard rebounder, maybe similar to what DeJounte Murray brought in his time in Atlanta. He's just not going to be the volume scorer. So I love getting him in like round 11, round 12, and you don't have to really go much higher than that, as we can tell by where the positioning currently is. And then just, again, quickly to note, if you are in a Yahoo draft and the board is sorting by X rank, you're going to have to scroll down incredibly low to find Zachary Ricochet, the number 1 overall pick. And yeah, like there has probably been has there been a less buzzy number 1 overall pick than Ricochet? Probably not. But like, he's still ranked at 512 even after they updated. 512. 512. Like, yeah, you just have to go down a long way to find him. Absolute last round flyer, late round flyer, maybe more, to be more accurate. 512 is clearly nonsense, and that just means that it's harder to find him. So you need to go down, and if you're not zeroed in on getting him, you have to look to find him. I don't think he's going to be good. I wouldn't have picked him number 1. I wouldn't pick him top 5 in a dynasty rookie draft. I wouldn't. But at this area of the draft, where there are so few rookies that I think are actually going to get starting roles or 30 minutes, he's one of them. He probably sucks. He's probably going to be bad as a rookie. But, yeah, not 518 bad. Today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. We love events. We love concerts. We love sports. We love theatre. We maybe love comedy. It depends on your tastes. But that doesn't matter, because whatever ticket it is that you're after, Game Time is going to have it. And as the legends over there that they are, they're always finding new ways to help. And Game Time Picks is the newest one of those. It is a feature that makes getting the tickets for your favorite live event even easier. They cut out the bad tickets, so they don't show them to you. They just prioritize the good ones. Like, hey, look at this. Great ticket, great price, bang, off you go. So you don't have to sift through all the different options and a lot of this and what's this price? Does this make sense? It's all done. Just to save you that additional part of time. And that's like nothing compared to the other stuff they have. The app is awesome. You go into the app, you can see all these different things. You can toggle on the all-in pricing so that instead of worrying about what the additional fees are going to be when you get to checkout, well, if you put that toggle on, when the tickets come up, you just see the full price straight away. You've got the views from your seat as well. You've got the zone deals. You've got the flash deals. You've got the lowest price guarantee. So many different features on Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets. With Game Time, download the Game Time app, create the account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. In an absolutely stunning turn of events, now that we've done undervalued players, we're going to do overvalued players. Just couldn't have seen that coming, could you? Really just all trickeration here. And as always, when we're talking overvalueds and undervalueds, we're always trying to find which guy and what format and all that sort of stuff. Like, that's always important. It's usually not a blanket statement. I like Bogdan Bogdanovic. He was really good last season. He was, I believe, I don't know if it was him or Monk that was my pick for 6th man of the year. He could see more value this season. That is possible. But I don't love that for category leagues on ESPN, he's ranked 71. I feel like that's just taking so much value away. He played 30 minutes last season with 22 usage. He could get easily more usage. He averaged 17 with 3 threes, 3.5 rebounds, 3.1 assists. That could easily go up. 1.2 steals, 43 and 92. But 92 probably comes down. Some of his 3-point shooting might come down. He's had bung knees for years, and he was really healthy last season. But of course, that doesn't mean that the problem is fixed. It doesn't mean that he's immune from other injuries. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm not worried about Bogdanovic at the age of 32 and some of his health stuff. And I just think getting him at those sort of positions in a draft, 71 on ESPN for categories and 78 on Yahoo for points, it just is not worth it to me in that spot. I talked about Onyeka Okongwu being an undervalued player, and I stand by that. But I don't stand by the fact that on Yahoo, if you're in a points league, he's ranked at 102. Now that is not worth it. In a category league, sure. At 102, I could see taking that plunge. That is the area where centers dry up. There's not many options left. And he can easily beat that in a best case season for him. Easily. But in a points league, he's not a points league guy. He's not a high accumulator. His value is in blocks, field goals, and free throw percentage, which is not like a good thing for points leagues. So at 102, that's burning money. And the next one, in my list of overvalued or undervalued guys, or those overvalued players, is the guy that, I guess could be starting in place of Onyeka Okongwu, and that's Clint Capela. His ADP is 88. His rank is 104. Now, his ADP is 88 on Yahoo because he was ranked in the 70s. So people obviously were drafting off of that rank, and that's where the ADP sits. But even at a new rank of 104, I don't think I want to do it. I don't hate it at that spot because, like I said, centers start to come off the board. But we've got Okongwu at 102 and Capela at 104. That's real hedging of the bet stuff. So one of them is going to be a disaster. His ADP, Capela, is 116 on ESPN. I don't really like that. The points league value is absolutely not there for Capela, and then on ESPN he's ranked 88 for points. Capela has been a strong fantasy player for a long time, mainly in category leagues and mainly on the back of the way that rankings value big men. Under average points, below average, 11.5 points in 26 minutes last season. 11 rebounds is great, but no assists, no steals. The blocks were fine, but they've dropped a bit. His field goal percentage dropped way off, and he's bad at free throws. So what he is a rebounds guy with good blocks and okay field goal percentage. And could be traded and could lose minutes. Now, trading it could actually help him. But I'm just not, especially like at 88. And like I said on the Sleeper show yesterday, that's his current ADP. But you don't know what people will do in your draft. I don't know how you approach your draft. There are some who will just look at X rank and draft with that as the pre-made list. There are others that go, let me sort this by ADP. And I don't know what you do. I don't know what I do. So I've got to present both sides of it. Well, I know what I do. I don't really pay attention to any of that. But you might have that order set that way. You might have it set by rank. You might have it set a different way, whatever. So I've got to present both ways. So when you're setting it by ADP and you see Capela at 88, it doesn't matter to you if you're doing your draft tomorrow, understanding, well, they've adjusted the rank, so the ADP is going to fall. You will still see him at 88 on that list. And you'll be like, oh, should I take him? Because one of the common phenomena when you're looking at a draft board and maybe the time's running down, you go, oh my God, it's my pick. Your eyes will look at the first 6 names and go, okay, so these are the guys at the top of the board. Like, take him. All right? That's a common thing, as I'm sure you've all experienced. So how that board is sorted can really impact what you do in a panic, time-pressed scenario. And I don't want to take Clint Capela anywhere near the top 100. I just don't think there's any value in that. Let's take a look at breakout candidates for the Atlanta Hawks. I've got 3 names on this list. 2 of them I've spoken about already in Dyson Daniels, who's got one of the clear-cut breakout opportunities. New team, worst team, potentially bigger role. Year 3. Year 3? Year 3. These are the biggest check boxes of all time for a breakout. I've got Onyeka Okongwu in there. Now, he's year 5. He's on the same team, but maybe this is the chance to start. We've spoken about him a lot. One name that I was annoyed that we didn't really get to see it last season because when Trae went down, we hoped we would get to see a little bit of Kobe Bufkin, and he came up, and I thought he did okay. And then he got hurt as well. And then they were making him run as point guard in Summer League, and then he didn't play because he separated his shoulder. Bufkin is a 6'5 combo guard. He played 12 minutes a game only. He averaged 5, 2, and 1.5 assists. He had 0.4 steals and shot 37 and 50, which are obviously horrible numbers, but he just didn't play. 12 minutes, not very much. But like I said before, who is the backup point guard on this team? Is Dyson Daniels really a point guard? Not really. Is Bogdan Bogdanovic a point guard? Like, not really. Is Vic Krejci a point guard? Sort of, but also not really. Is Kobe Bufkin? Like, not really, but also more of a point guard than anybody else, and they want him to be a point guard. So I think that if the shoulder issue is okay for Kobe, he will be in the opening night rotation as a backup. And with Bogdanovic being 32 and probably not a part of the next great Hawks team, and Daniels being a starter with no track record of producing, what if Kobe does become the next Bogdanovic as soon as now and plays 27 off the bench as the backup point guard and a backup shooting guard and does a whole bunch of stuff? I don't think it's going to happen, but I also think that after being picked 15 a year ago and seeing nothing out of him, this is a chance for us to go, maybe we've got a player here. And then a Trae, Dyson, Kobe trio is the guard group that they look to develop. It's just a name to keep an eye on. I'm not saying that we're getting big production or it's all going to be unbelievable from Kobe, but we just didn't see anything. And I do believe there is talent. Good driver, pretty good defender, solid passer, think he can be a good shooter. Rookie year was a write-off. Summer League was a write-off. We hope the injuries aren't a thing that continues, but this is a chance for him. Let's take a look at risks across the rotation. A lot of these are relatively self-evident, I think. The number one is, what the hell happens at center? I think it's Okongwu, but what if it's Capela? I don't think Capela would be playing 29 minutes, and what if they just a 24-24 split? What if it's a Capela starts and closes games and Okongwu plays 28 behind him? We just don't know. And what about if Okongwu's playing next to Capela? That's possible too, because the backup power forward situation, I guess, is Ricochet and Hunter, who are probably better as threes, or it's Mo Gay. Does Ricochet start? I expect that he would, but he very much might not. He might play 26 minutes a night for 2 months, and then you would drop him immediately if that was the case. Vic Krejci was awesome last season. It was when other injuries were apparent, but Krejci was awesome. And there's a chance that, A, he's not even in the rotation because of Bogdan Bogdanovic, Daniels, Young, Hunter, Ricochet, Johnson, Capela, Okongwu. If they run 9, he doesn't play. Or he comes in, and what he provided last season, Vit, which was just an unbelievable piece as a defender, shooter, fit in, low usage, 10 usage player in 25 minutes, and he had some fantasy value at times. He shot the ball really well. But if he comes in and demands 25 minutes, they have to come from somewhere. And that is going to impact Dyson Daniels. It's going to impact Bufkin. It's going to impact Hunter. It's going to impact Ricochet. And I don't think we really talk about it at all. And I haven't really spoken about it. But that's an impact. It's an issue. The other one is like, is it Dyson Daniels? Is it Bogdan Bogdanovic? Does it really matter who starts? Because it obviously matters more who gets minutes. Because if Bogdan plays 31 off the bench, Daniels plays 25 as a starter, probably. If Daniels plays 30 minutes, does Bogdanovic get 28? And these are a lot of questions regarding this team and what they're going to do with their rotation. After losing a big piece like DeJounte Murray, yeah, you expect that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You can be sitting there watching your game. The NFL, NBA preseason has started. It started like right now. Don't get too excited about what the games mean, but there are things we can take out of it. And you might be watching that with your mates. You might be sitting there with your dog. He doesn't know how to use the FanDuel app, but you do. You can show it to him. You open it up on the page where the bets are, and right there, you've got that hunch, you've got that feeling, you've got the gut instinct. And you go, well, let me just check with some information. Because we're not all just sitting there, that boy nicing. We want to check the information. Live stats, live play-by-play, all in the same place where you place your bets. And when you are a new customer, if you place your first $5 bet, well, they'll just throw at you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So head across to FanDuel, check it out, FanDuel.com. What are you really gambling with? Okay. We've talked about the rotation risks. We've talked about the overvalued and undervalued players. Now, let's put Jalen Johnson under the lens. A guy that once John Collins was traded last season, I was incredibly excited for. I said, this is the guy that they need to play. And then I also had very little faith that they would, because they had Sadiq Bey, and I went, they are going to play 2 terrible players in Hunter and Bey, and they are going to suppress Johnson. And that was sort of true. We saw it in the preseason that Johnson was good, but he still was a bench player. And I was like, okay, let's take him in the later rounds. Because I just did not believe that immediately, and I should have just believed more in my, I think Bey is bad, I think Johnson is good, therefore that will be figured out quickly. And it was. It was like one game. And Jalen Johnson moved into the starting lineup. Sadiq Bey's career was cooked. Hopefully he recovers from his ACL injury. And Johnson was the guy that I would have picked for most improved player had he met the absolutely asinine 65-game minimum. Of course I couldn't because, dumbness. Johnson now enters into year 4. But I think we've got to be a little cautious about Jalen Johnson. He was great. He also sprained his ankle 3 times and broke his wrist. He also started out the season absolutely red hot and started to fall away a little bit with some of his shooting. Now, At the end of the season, when he came back and Trae Young was out, even though the shooting fell off, his usage rose up, and he still was producing similar overall fantasy value numbers, which is awesome. But there was a lot of stuff that sort of changed and regressed from really high numbers early on that makes me just be somewhat cautious. And by saying somewhat cautious, I'll take him in round 3. I believe in a lot of stuff that Jalen does. But looking at this crafted graph, like there's not a lot of bright greens there on the offensive side. His shooting quality is bad. His three-point attempt rate is low. His free throw rate is low. His true shooting is mid. His creation to turnover number is low. His offensive load and creation were low, which you could say is a positive because it will increase this season, but we'll see if he can handle that. Defensively, he protected the rim a lot. Like he was there challenging shots, but wasn't always great. He's not a super strong rebounder. These numbers, look, he is a good player, but we have to be cautious about overestimating what happens from here. And again, I still think he's a third-round player, but there are just a couple of things that I always wanted to present sort of both sides. I hate what Canva is doing at the moment, and usually I don't use Canva to produce my graphics, but I did with these ones, and I hate that like I've got it set to like bolden those the blacks on that graph, and then it exports, and now it's just not doing it. Even though when I look at it on the screen, it's there. I don't know what's going on with Canva. This glow up has screwed me. Anyway, maybe I'll figure out what to do. What this shows is the defensive matchups for Jalen Johnson, and he guarded small forwards almost as much as power forwards. What that is interesting to me with, which is terrible English, is that he's playing as a wing defensively versus a big. That can often impact your ability to block shots, and he protected the rim quite a bit, as you can see on that rim frequency. But are they going to transition him to a full point of attack wing guy? And what does that do for rebounds and blocks? Just again, something to watch. On the right-hand side here, according to Dunks and Threes, there is his free throw percentage, which started out really good, and as the season went on, dropped down well below league average. That's not good. And by down below league average, I'm talking he was in like the 67 range, and that was one of the big improvements from Jalen Johnson last season, is he fixed his free throws. But he fixed it early, going at like 80%, and then went back to being bad again. And remember, if he's getting more usage and he's shooting poorly from the free throw line, it impacts you more. Just be aware of, if you have Jalen Johnson, that you might find yourself in a punt free throw scenario. I've got him projected at 72 from the line. That could be 68 really easily. And 68 on 5 attempts is actually really bad, and I don't think that a lot of people are prepared for that. The headshot plot on the left shows passing versatility, because part of the thing, and I've heard some crazy comparisons for Jalen Johnson. He could be like a Ben Simmons that shoots. Okay, mate, probably not. But he can handle the ball. He can pass. So what I'd put there is passing versatility, which is a metric on Basketball Index. Certain different types of passes you can do, and that would necessitate how much you can have the ball in your hands and be the guy that initiates. Because if you can do like a simple pick and roll dump off or a handoff like a DeMontis Sabonis, that's fine for generating assists, but it doesn't mean that you are this elite passer. I'm not saying that Sabonis isn't a good passer, but they're different types. So if you can do a bunch of different passes, live dribble passes, bringing the ball up and setting up an offense, that's different. The other one is this three-point shooting talent percentile, because Jalen, like his free throw, started out shooting the three ball well, and that fell off. The guy very much over on the right-hand side with the higher three-point shooting talent percentile is DeAndre Hunter, and he's still only at the 50th percentile. And the other guys are a bunch of names that come up as similarity players for old mate Jalen Johnson. Evan Mobley, Bam Adebayo, and Miles Bridges. And you'll see all of those guys sit at below 20th percentile shooting talent. And Jalen is actually below Bam. Right? Below Bam. So we don't look at Bam as a good three-point shooter. He's about equal with Evan Mobley, who we also don't think is a good shooter. Just be aware of his three-point shooting. But what is encouraging is that we look at Bam as a man, what a good passer he is for a big man. And Jalen sits as 60th percentile passing versatility. Bam is about 78th percentile. So Jalen, well above where Evan Mobley is as a passer. And that is one of those things where, okay, so maybe some of the passing stuff we see from Jalen has an ability to rise up. Can he push to be a Bam-level passer? And Bam used to be even better than this. But the shooting, maybe that's not quite real. You also notice that DeAndre Hunter is nowhere near a level past what Jalen Johnson is. And of course, losing DeJounte Murray means somebody else has to do creation. So while I'm not trying to perform doom and gloom here for you guys on Jalen Johnson, it's about me talking about the ways that it can go right, the ways that it can go wrong, and the things we need to be cautious of when we talk about it. If we have a look at what Jalen actually did last season, he, in age 22 season, he played 34 minutes, so that is hard to go up, but 19 usage can easily become 23. He averaged only 16 points and only 1.3 triples, but 9 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.8 blocks on 51 and 73. I'd be expecting those percentages maybe both to come down. I'd be expecting the points and the threes to maybe go up. I'd expect the assists to rise a little bit as well. And when we're talking about where Jalen sits, we already talked about some of the ranking stuff being off with him and the ADP stuff being off. Him in round 3, totally reasonable. Him finishing top 30 this season, absolutely in play. But there are just a few things, and you've always got to be cautious with these sort of players to understand when the hype is there and what could go wrong. And what if he's a 31% three-point shooter with 67 from the line and the blocks drop by 0.3? Then he's like not even top 70. The similar players to Bam on a fantasy statistical profile side are Bam Adebayo, Miles Bridges, and then Denny Avdia slides in there, and Evan Mobley. The thick line, of course, is always Jalen Johnson, so you can see he's up there in the rebound level. He's a better three-point shooter than most of these guys, apart from Miles Bridges in terms of volume. Much worse shot blocker than some of them, like Evan Mobley, obviously, but that's the same sort of shape. Bam had times as a top 25 player. Mobley, top 25 upside. Bridges, yeah, but Bridges in that 60, 70, 80 zone. So there's a lot of different ways here, I think, where Jalen Johnson can go that we do have to be aware of it. Let's take a look now at injury concerns on this Hawks team. And there are a few of them, a few that we need to just be cautious of. One of them I mentioned already is Bogdan Bogdanovic, who's had a lot of knee problems in his past. He was healthy last season. He played in the Olympics. He was awesome in the Olympics. But he is 32, so we've just got to be aware of it. Jalen Johnson sprained that ankle 3 times last season, so of course, if you're going to be worried about LaMelo Ball, at least throw some level of concern at Jalen. Onyeka Okongwu's toe, the fact that this guy seems to get opportunities and then as soon as it happens he gets injured is scaring me somewhat. And he doesn't appear right at the moment, which is, again, 6 months since that injury. I don't like that. Kobe Buffkin's shoulder kept him out of Summer League. I think he's going to be okay to start the year, but also maybe not. I quickly want to mention Nikola Jurisic here, who was the second-round pick, a sort of 6'6"-ish wing who can handle the ball and shoot a bit. And I thought looked pretty good in Summer League, but then broke his foot. And I'll tell you this, Nikola Jurisic will not play in the NBA this season at this stage because he is not signed to a contract. Their roster is full, and they are not planning to sign Jurisic to a contract this season. So he is going to be a stashed guy. Now, he's going to be out for most of the season. I don't know if he goes to Europe. I don't know if he plays in their G League for half a season, the way that Carlo Makovic did for the Pelicans at the end of last season. But Jurisic will not be on this roster opening night. With the way things currently stand, they do not have the space. They've actually got one too many players. Like Cody Zeller probably has to get cut still. DeAndre Hunter's had a lot of problems with his knees as well. That's not to say, of course, that will necessarily recur, but he's had a lot of knee problems and soft tissue injuries, which have really hampered him. Also, he's not very good, and that's hampered him too. But that has been a problem for DeAndre. Now, Hunter's one of those guys who goes on these little hot streaks, but realistically, what he is a player that gets high usage at times. He shoots like 50% from 3 in those games. He does nothing else because he never rebounds or steals or blocks or gets assists or gets to the line. He gets on a hot streak of scoring with high usage, and that doesn't lead to good results for a team. And a team would be stupid to pump big usage into him. But, of course, this team doesn't have that usage guy. I expect that Jalen Johnson becomes the second player, but what if it is Hunter? Because if he was able to find himself in an Andrew Wiggins level of usage, well, he's a very similar player to Wiggins. In that, just push enough minutes and usage there, then you can get fantasy value. I'm not touching DeAndre Hunter in a million years because I've seen it so many times. Plus the injury concern. Plus, again, I don't think he's good. But there's openings on this team. We've seen it. We've spoken about it. Let's talk about the fantasy schedule for the Hawks and how important it is, what's good, what's bad. They've got 51 quality games, which is sort of middle of the pack. They've got 16 back-to-backs, which is the maximum of anybody. Shouldn't impact really too many guys here. 13 maximum game weeks on the low side, and their playoffs are fine. If you finish on March 23rd, it's 4-4-3. If you finish on March 30th, it's 433. Yahoo default's not great, 334, and ESPN default is 3344. So it's fine. It's middle of the pack. It's nothing that stands out massively, and it shouldn't influence, I don't think, any of your draft decisions either way. Let's take a look at their younger guys on this squad, the players who are under the age of 23. You'll also notice I haven't mentioned Trae Young yet. We will get into talking about Trae soon because I'm not sure how interesting it is, but we'll get to him in a sec. Jalen Johnson, in terms of dynasty value, I think actually a top 25 dynasty player. I got Dyson Daniels as top 125 and Ricochet as top 100. Ricochet's top 100 value is influenced a lot by the fact that he was the number one overall pick, and that plays a part in that. I still don't love it, but in a dynasty rebuild scenario, I think you do have to at least take a crack there. I've got Kobe Buffkin also as top 100, which was surprising for me to see that, but considering he didn't do much last season, I'd be more skeptical on that one, but he does have interesting numbers. Mo Gay could get backup power forward minutes. Hawks fans love this guy for whatever reason. He's sort of interesting, but he had a back problem basically all of last season. He didn't do anything exciting, so I'm not going to get over the top there. He's top 250, and I've got Dom Barlow, a guy that I also really, really like, Dommy Barlow, the Trojan. But on another two-way, I thought he impressed in San Antonio, but they cut him. The Hawks signed him. They've got Capela and Okongwu, but honestly, if they do move on from Capela, if I was Atlanta, I would be rushing to convert this guy to be the backup center. Barlow averaged 4.5 and 3.5 with half a block in 13 minutes. His shooting numbers are okay. I think he's got some ability to stretch out. He's somewhat undersized. He's still only 21. But every year that goes past where the opportunities don't arise or he doesn't take them, I lose faith. I really like Barlow coming out of Overtime Elite. Thought he played really well in the seasons we've seen so far. But if teams don't agree, then it doesn't matter whether I think that or not. It just doesn't. I can think whatever I want, and if teams don't play him, it doesn't matter. In terms of the variance legend, the risk versus reward player that we want to pay attention to, who has the highest sort of ups and downs based on their categories, well, it is Bogdan Bogdanovic, whose category league variance is like 88 spots. It's also why I don't want to take him in the 70s. His fantasy points variance is 5.6, so it's not as high, but it's still there. He is a quite variable player without considering injuries or minutes or roles or any of those different things. Lastly, we will talk Trae Young. Don't worry. This is me hitting the SEO, talking the most talked about player, the most popular player, the first round fantasy pick. Let's leave it till the 40th minute mark before we talk about Trae Young. That is really hitting what people want to know. Let's talk about guys who are over the age of 29, where we've got to consider some decline. Bogdan, Clint Capela, Cody Zeller. Larry Nance is on this team. Where does Larry Nance play? He is exclusively a center in New Orleans, and Capela and Okongwu are here. Does he play the backup four? Does he play at all? Why has he not been traded? He's old. He's 31, and Nance lost some of his magic last season. Knee injuries, soft tissue build-up. He's been a poor shot blocking, good steals, unbelievable defensive big man who's a low usage guy who passes really well. And he was awesome in New Orleans. The fit here doesn't make as much sense. And are they honestly going to run a three-man rotation at center? I don't think so. Are they going to play him at the four, which is not a great idea? I don't know. I have no idea where Larry Nance fits in on this team. He's probably good enough that he has to play, but where? When? How? I don't see it. We're obviously not drafting him. It's not a good spot. Now, let's talk about Rayford. Rayford? I think it's Rayford Young. Is that his name? Let me double check. I know he's got like a name that we don't expect him to be called. Trae Young. I'm in on Trae Young. I am most times in category leagues. Yeah, Rayford Trae Young. There you go. 36 minutes a game, 30 usage. There are people who go, well, DeJounte Murray's gone. He's going to do everything. And that's sort of true, but he already did do everything. His assist rate went up last season with DeJounte there. There is a chance that his assist rate drops this season, but his overall scoring usage goes up. He averaged 26 with over 3 threes, 11 assists and 1.3 steals, which was up for him, 43 and 86 from the line. He could be an 89 free throw guy. He's never been a consistent 40% three-point shooter. He's more about volume and difficulty and opening up stuff for everybody else. But there's no reason to me that Trae Young can't get to 28, 11 assists, variable steals, 3.7 triples, 44% from the field on 39 from 3, 89 on 7 attempts from the line. That's a first-round guy. And yeah, When you want to look at your straight 9-cat rankings, you'll look at them and go, oh, Trae Young's in the 40s, which, of course, should explain to you why you don't want to ever use those rankings to assess a player's value for a head-to-head category league. There are big downsides for Trae. He doesn't rebound. He's bad field goals. He turns the ball over. But if you're getting 11 assists from a player, unless you are the outlier, which is Tyrese Halliburton, who still turns it over, but not to that level, it's very hard to build assists and to build scoring while keeping turnovers low. That is just a fact of how those stats work. And there's maybe 1 to 2 guys who can do it. If you can't get them, well, that is going to be the problem. That does not mean that you should be looking at players that are clearly inferior to what Trae does, 20 spots ahead of them, based on what those rankings would tell you. The question, I guess, is how high do you go on Trae? That's the question. How far can you push it? Because his ADP on Fantrax is 11. His rank on Yahoo is 11. His rank on ESPN, hold on to it, it's 11. Could you go to 8? I think you could. Would he finish the season as 8th? Probably not, but that also doesn't matter. It's about assists, points, very hard to come by. Great free throws, good volume, hard to come by. Threes, get them later. And then assessing what you do in the other rounds. I've got no problem after like 8 or 9 of picking Trae Young in round 1. Even understand that I don't care what the ranking shows at the end of the season. Categorical scarcity and building a team is more important. So, when we head out of here, I know in the last few shows I have not done this, and I do apologize for that, but giving you a little bit of a summary. I take Trae Young in round 1, really without any fear or favor. I take Jalen Johnson in round 3. If you wanted to go into round 2, it's probably a little high, but round 3, no problem. Bogdan, for me, in the 90s to 100s. Okongwu, similar spot. Capela, 120s. Dyson Daniels, late round flyer. Ricochet, late round flyer. Capela, 120 is fine. But then Hunter and Bufkin and Nance and Krejci, we're not drafting any of those players. And that's where we sit with the Atlanta Hawks, and that is where we sit with the end of the team previews. While I'm here on screen showing you to give the thumb up on YouTube, remember, we're trying to hit 100K on YouTube, but also Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl Draft and Stash. Sign up, link below. FBI World Cup, sign up, link below. Leave a comment if you understood the joke at the start. And guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.